Hey guys, it's Mrs. Kleinley with this week's First Chapter Friday. This week I have one of my all-time favorite books to talk to you about, The Lightning Thief by Riordan. It is part of the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. It is the first book in the series. And this series does matter. You know how some series it doesn't matter what order you kind of read the books in. This one it does. So if you're even a little bit interested in getting into the series, this is definitely going to be the first book that you're going to want to start with. Now, I want to preface it by saying that I am not a fantasy reader. I know that lots of different kids and adults really enjoy fantasy. I'm just not that person. But I fell in love with this book the first time I've read it. I've reread it a couple times. I've seen the Broadway show. I've seen the movie. The movie's kind of terrible. So if you've seen the movie, please don't write the book off as a result of the movie. So let's talk a little bit about our book. Our main character's name is Percy Jackson, and he is just a normal teenager. He has ADHD and dyslexia, which means it makes some challenges for him as far as reading goes. So he's not like setting the world on fire academically. He has one pretty good friend, but he's definitely not the most popular kid in school. And weird things kind of start happening around him. There's lots of Greek mythology in this book. So if you are not super familiar with Greek mythology, you'll get to like kind of dip your toes into that pool a little bit. And then there's a spin-off series, if you get into the series that you like later on, which involves Roman mythology. So let's go ahead and jump right into chapter 1, which is called I Accidentally Vaporized My Pre-Algebra Teacher. Look, I didn't want to be a half-blood. If you're reading this because you think you might be one, my advice is close this book right now. Believe whatever lie your mom or dad told you about your birth and try to lead a normal life. Being a half-blood is dangerous. It's scary. Most of the time, it gets you killed in painful, nasty ways. If you're a normal kid reading this because you think it's fiction, great. Read on. I envy you for being able to believe that none of this ever happened. But if you recognize yourself in these pages, if you feel something stirring inside, stop reading immediately. You might be one of us. And once you know that, it's only a matter of time before they sense it too. And they'll come for you. Don't say I didn't warn you. My name is Percy Jackson. I'm 12 years old. Until a few months ago, I was a boarding student at Yancey Academy, a private school for troubled kids in upstate New York. Am I a troubled kid? Yeah, you could say that. I could start at any point in my short, miserable life to prove it, but things really started going bad last May when our sixth grade class took a field trip to Manhattan. 28 mental case kids and 2 teachers on a yellow school bus heading to the Metropolitan Museum of Art to look at ancient Greek and Roman stuff. I know it sounds like torture. Most CNC field trips were, but Mr. Brunner, our Latin teacher, was leading this trip, so I had hopes. Mr. Brunner was this middle-aged guy in a motorized wheelchair. He had thinning hair and a scruffy beard and a frayed tweed jacket, which always smelled like coffee. You wouldn't think he'd be cool, but he told stories and jokes and let us play games in class. He also had this awesome collection of Roman armor and weapons, so he was the only teacher whose class didn't put me to sleep. I hoped the trip would be okay. At least I hoped that for once I wouldn't get in trouble. Boy, was I wrong. See, bad things happened to me on field trips. Like at my fifth grade school, when we went to the Saratoga battlefield, I had this accident with a Revolutionary War cannon. I wasn't aiming for the school bus, but of course I got expelled anyway. And before that, at my fourth grade school, when we took a behind the scenes tour of the Marine World Shark Pool, I sort of hit the wrong lever on the catwalk and our class took an unplanned swim. And the time before that, well, you get the idea. This trip, I was determined to be good. All the way into the city, I put up with Nancy Bobafett, a freckly, red-headed kleptomaniac girl, hitting my best friend Grover in the back of the head with chunks of peanut butter and ketchup sandwich. Grover was an easy target. He was scrawny. He cried when he got frustrated. He must have been held back several grades because he was the only sixth grader with acne and the start of a wispy beard on his chin. On top of all of that, he was crippled. He had a note excusing him from PE for the rest of his life because he had some kind of muscular disease in his legs. He walked funny, like every step hurt him. But don't let that fool you. You should have seen him run when it was enchilada day in the cafeteria. Anyway, Nancy Bobofet was throwing wads of sandwich that stuck in his curly brown hair, and she knew I couldn't do anything back to her because I was already on probation. The headmaster had threatened me with death by in school suspension if anything bad, embarrassing, or even mildly entertaining happened on this trip. I'm going to kill her, I mumbled. Grover tried to calm me down. It's okay. I like peanut butter. He dodged another piece of Nancy's lunch. That's it. I started to get up, but Grover pulled me back to my seat. You're already on probation, he reminded me. You know who will get blamed if anything happens. Looking back on it, I wish I'd decked Nancy Bobofet. Right then and there, in school suspension would have been nothing compared to the mess I was about to get myself into. All right, so I'm going to stop there. Percy and Grover end up going to this. So, a half blood, as he referenced earlier in the chapter, is when you are a child that one of your parents is a Greek god and one of your parents is a normal human American person. So his dad turns out to be a very, very famous Greek god, and then his mom is just the mortal, the normal American human. So as a result, he ends up at this place called Camp Half Blood, which are all different half bloods, all different of the Greek gods' children are kind of at this summer camp, but it's a year-round camp. It's not just in summertime, where they're learning how to be like the ultimate Greek gods. And Percy and his friends end up going on a quest that kind of takes them all over the United States and into the underworld, and eventually up to meet his father. So awesome, awesome book. Even if you're not a fantasy reader, I think you'll like this book because that's the kind of reader I am. If you're a fantasy reader, you will absolutely enjoy this book. If you have any interest in Greek mythology, you'll enjoy this book. There are definitely funny points. There's definitely scary points. There's a lot of adventure and suspense all built into this book. So Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief, can be found in our fantasy section under RIO for Riordan. I hope you enjoy. Happy reading.